association with Indian Cutting Tool Manufacturing Association. And to start with, we have Mr. Ravi Prem, President ICTMA as the session chairman.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. I don't really see that I have that kind of credentials to my CV, but anyway, thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We today are definitely going to run you through more on cutting tools. That's one sector which probably is the most ignored sector. When I say ignored, I've been very cautious by making that statement. Unfortunately, this cutting tool did not have even a status as an industry in a manufacturing ecosystem of the India, where we are talking about big growth, manufacturing as the key strategic driver for Indian economy. And I'll just quickly try to introduce what actually cutting tool in India economic progress we do. I just would like to say actually we are complementing the vision of Prime Minister Atmanirbhar Bharat. The amount of initiatives which are happening through, and we have a time slot given, so I'd like to quickly run you through the different schemes which are running by Government of India. It is very, very critical that with all these initiatives which are on the board will not get fructifies into the reality if cutting tool sector does not really participate in that manufacturing space. Cutting tools, we so far, though we have many manufacturing setups now here, local and global players in India, but we still have close to 60% plus imports when it comes to the cutting tools to India. So which means within that space we still have a lot of space to cover. There are special toolings which still comes from outside. There are the set of standard tools which are also being imported, particularly from eastern part of world. All high-end technology toolings are still coming from the western part of the world. I will not name the countries, don't want to be biased on the geopolitical situations. Few of the facts, it is very, very cost competitive market. You pick the best cutting solutions, go to the customer. The discussion is always going to be around price. It is never going to be performance. And that is the space where we are operating, which makes it, and you must be wondering, why this discussion. The agenda is cutting tool supply chain, but we need to know what is the background with which we need to manage supply chain part of cutting tools. So it is very, very cost competitive market. Though we are putting our efforts to strengthen our R&D, cost competitiveness, all those areas. Advanced workpiece material, because the emerging sectors in Indian manufacturing space is no more the automotive and only automotive. The cutting tools now being consumed in aerospace, defense, electronics. So these are emerging medical. These are the emerging sectors which are coming up. This is what we see the changing this is what is the changing manufacturing space for India. We talk about right from automotive, defense, aerospace, electronics, power. This is what the space where we would like to play. This is where the manufacturing growth of India is going to come from. And we had a couple of meetings with the ministry, and where we were discussing. They said cutting tool, it's part of machine tools. They said no, this is not a part of machine tools. This is cutting tools. And it was so difficult to explain someone who actually is at a policy making stage. I said it's like in a body you have the complete thing, but you don't have a teeth to eat food. So it is, probably would be something very similar. As we speak in India, the green what you see are the matured markets. So cutting tool manufacturers, the users knows what they need, and what is being offered. With regards to the yellow one, these are the evolving one, where EV space is coming up, so obviously the batteries. Electronic is another area which is actually coming up in a big way, and the government is also giving a big push to that. Energy, which is not only the green energy, but even the conventional power sector is catching up. India, unfortunately, the two industry segments has been not so known in India market segment, but yes, this is again an area of opportunity for cutting tools globally. With these two segments are very well matured segments. So the challenge is, as we speak, carbide, there is zero manufacturers here. So 100% of the carbide being produced for all high performance tools, whatever that 40, 50, 45% being manufactured in India, either are being coming from China, which coincidentally happen to have 85% of tungsten ores globally. The number two area where is Germany, from where Europe per se, but majority of them in Germany. That's being all high-end tooling requirement of carbides being catered through for a raw material. When it comes to high-speed steel, there's only one manufacturer, organized manufacturer in India. The rest all steel is imported either from Europe or from China. That is the state of affair we in cutting tool industry we are into. And this is one area when we talk about self-reliant Bharat, or we talk about a growth in manufacturing sector. In absence of this particular element, cutting tool industry will never be a cost competitive globally when it comes to the global supply chain. So this is one area where we as a ICTMA are working very closely with the ministry and trying to see at least all that import of a carbide which we do, and if we stop it exporting back and do processing it here, it is a good enough for having Indian requirements. There are processors available. The two of them have already started doing processing in India, and so that's what we are trying to do. And government also has identified this as a strategic mineral. Modern measuring equipments. There are a couple of people now in Pune who have started building some of the solutions, but these are mostly coming from Europe. So there is nothing which comes, and anything which we import, one is very expensive and customer is not willing to pay the price for it. Point number two, it has longer lead time. And point number three, the post sales, the service itself is a very, very challenging. High type of machines, any tool today, it's probably one of the complex product in manufacturing space, and I call that as a three-dimensional space. You create cutting tool geometries, which probably would be one of the most critical component, I would say, if in manufacturing parlance, to produce. It has a lot of dependent parameters, so you require 7-axis CNC grinding machines, which itself is a very, very expensive. Big companies probably yes can take it, but the smaller one will have a challenge, and obviously they compromise on using either a second-hand machines or go for the inferior quality of a product, which in turns will have an impact when it comes to export. People say these suppliers are not reliable suppliers. So that is where, from India perspective, this is going to be one of the challenge element. So far, all cutting tool companies were mostly automotive and auto component dependent, but thanks to the government initiatives right from 2014 and looking Make in India and the drives of GDP growth coming from a manufacturing sector, the non-automotive sector is emerging, and it is emerging in a very, very accelerated pace. Be it be electronics, aerospace, medical, is what something where people have started putting in a big money, and the government also has floated a lot of PLIs to incentivize them. So we are coming out of automotive. It still happen to be 75% of tooling consumptions, which still is a major chunk, but I think the other emerging sectors are growing at a rapid speed. As I discussed, the small scale and medium scale companies, because it is very highly capital intensive industry, have a lot of challenge for a survival and a sustainability. Lack of skilled workforce, though we say it is 7x CNC grinder, and you take it for sure, even if you copy identical tool, it will not perform identical. So there is something which is unique to that individual who produced that tool. So there is still a skill element involved, in spite of the technology being introduced into a manufacturing process. So it is highly skill driven, and there are not many institutes who actually educate people and train them on applied engineering, what need to be built in cutting tool when they are actually producing it. Of course, there are a lot of informal imports which keep happening. So all that is being a challenge. It does not mean the cutting tool industry is not thriving and growing. We are growing all in 16 to 18, 20% growth. And there are small scales also have started catching up with all big boys. Fortunately, and I'm happy to say that it is industry which is becoming more interactive. It is opening the doors for each other. We don't consider them as a competitor, so we can walk into each other's factory quietly. At least it started with the big brothers. I'm sure it also will happen with the small scales. Finally, it is not the machines which actually produce the product. It is your relationship and engagement and customer relationship which brings you a business. Focus on manufacturing sector by government is what is a big opportunity for us, and is going to grow multiple double digits. Growth focus on non-auto sectors, I have already said. Internal demand-driven economy. India, fortunately, been for last decade and so, and is going to be at least another 25 years, going to be the era of Indian economy where we have enough consumption, the initiatives are in place, where all cutting tool manufacturing and machine building is something which will see a tremendous growth. So there's opportunity available. Export is a big opportunity. I don't think there was something we was been in discussion that globe is looking at an alternative to China. I would say India is the only option available to them at this point of time, and we are really lucky to be a part of this country where actually it is growing at a significant pace. Government is doing infra push, and of course no economy can be built and sustained without having sustainable infra growth, and that's where even cutting tool is going to be, because the moment we talk about infra, you require heavy commercial vehicles and heavy trucks. Moment it comes automotive or any other machinery for it, you need cutting tools. So it has direct or indirect dependency with regard to that. Coming back to supply chain, so these are the two elements which I would say, the suppliers part, and I think part of that which I already covered in my earlier slides. The supplier ecosystem, when we talk about cutting tools, particularly raw material, we are heavily import dependent. Machines, it is heavily import dependent. Measuring instrument, it is heavily import dependent. So this industry per se is heavily import dependent. When it comes to the internal supply chain elements, which is more of a design, as we speak, 85% of Indian tool manufacturers does not design their tools inside. It is either a copy or doing some jugaad to fulfill the requirement. So that is one area where in a technology space, India has to come a long way, and there are discussions which are on from ICTMA point of view to establish centers so that at least this can be taken care. Production, I have already discussed. Distribution, and this other element which actually drives this entire system is a customer. So most of us, India is probably the exception globally. We are not still working on e-commerce. It is still a distribution-based economy when it comes to cutting tools. So which means we still service customers, but those customers are being serviced through channel partners. So business development will be done by companies, but then servicing of those customers will be done through a channel partner. So stock is being maintained. So you still will have lack of visibility in terms of your demand forecasting point of view, which makes this entire supply chain very, very challenging and not really very transparent. End users, there are a lot of options available, and I would quote example of taps. 10-12 years back, there were only 4-5 manufacturers in India. As we speak, there are 18 manufacturers. So it is becoming a crowded space, so which means customer is having an option. And when customer is having an option and you have a lack of a visibility of the demand forecasting, it becomes really very, very difficult for manufacturers to service client and retain business. So this is one area, a challenging point of view from supply chain point of view. We as Indian manufacturers, not all of them, very information driven. So today when we need to have the information on a single platform, not every company can operate on ERP and CRMs of the world. So they are working on individual informations, so which means there is going to be a time lag. So the moment you have a time lag, decision is going to get delayed, and obviously there is going to be a backlash when it comes to the customer service. So this is where actually the issue in terms of supply chain, and that's what probably we'll try to cover in this forum, is what we are trying to thought I'll just do the warm up on that part. Emerging sectors, healthcare, medical devices, as we speak, 87% of implants being imported today is not being produced in India. And because material is available, forgings are available, but they're not adequate toolings available. So we have started participating, and this is where actually it is growing, and it is growing at a rapid speed. Of course, medical certifications plays its own challenge, and CDSCO, which is a regulatory body for medical devices certifications, has its own challenges, but I think we are trying to overcome that as well. Aerospace and defense, government has a big push on this sector, and there are not only now Make in India, but this is also now for exports. So this is one sector which government is putting a big push. I think this was next 3C was a sleeping giant. Neither a government nor a manufacturers nor the tooling people have ever thought this will come in a way that today if I put collectively the entire cutting tool fraternity will not be able to fulfill the demand of this sector. So which means in the days and years to come, we still have to be import dependent on this sector. One, it requires micro tools. Number two, it requires huge volumes. And you cannot create those capacity just to give you a feel of it. If I place order for one machine, it will have a minimum lead time of 6 to 8 months time. So which means if I don't have a predictability of what is going to be planned next year, forget it, you will not be able to be on budget or growth there. So this is one area where, solar, I think this is one area which is again taking a big push. The investments are coming through for that. Batteries and battery management system, EV, fortunately in India, of course, started late, but I think accelerating on that path. This is one area which is again showing a tremendous growth. A lot of players, those who are, and I was surprised, Rajesh, you will support this. In Delhi alone, 146 e-rickshaw got registered in last 1 year. So this is the kind of a speed where people are actually trying to adopt the technologies which are available. It may be just simply integration, they may not be doing any R&D work, but that's the kind of two-wheelers story known to everyone. So this is one area where we have a possibility to grow. Obviously scale and size of the industry, technology gaps, raw material availability and inclusion of MSME is something which is the challenges we see in a cutting tool industry. So I thought I'll just wrap this up to you so that you will have a context from where we are actually discussing in terms of a supply chain point of view. What are the challenges? How are we trying to overcome that?
Cutting fluids to minimize their impact, promoting responsible water usage and innovative solutions.
Welcome everybody, and I sincerely congratulate the machine maker to bring us all together here and having a wonderful session like this. So to start with, I will begin by inviting Mr. Swapnil Apte. He is the MD of Ramakant Group, which is a major machine tool manufacturer. Next, I invite Mr. Reddy, Mr. Ramakant Reddy, who is the Managing Director of LMD Tools, important. Then I invite a close friend of mine, Mr. Anand Kumar, Director of Prowess Tools. And then lastly, I would like to invite Mr. Satish Gaikwad from Philosopher. Welcome everyone. Fortunately, we have two cutting tool manufacturers on the platform right now. So I would like to question them both that considering the forecasted demand, we see a huge demand for cutting tools and in general Indian manufacturing in the coming days. Along with these very critical challenges, mainly we are import dependent. So how do you face these challenges, or what strategies are you adopting in overcoming them?
I would like to answer in two aspects. One is Mr. Ravi Prem already mentioned about the raw materials. So for the cutting tools, we will the raw material either from Germany or from the China. Like we said, for carbide tool is produced in India. And high speed steel mostly it is coming from Europe, and currently they are having the huge demand from Europe. The delivery time for the high speed steel, high grades is 2 years. The tools which we produce in our factory, those are with all the superior grades where the delivery time, lead time is 2 years. We have to make the prowess planning considering the 2 years demands. So we are working on this, and we are making the plans, we take the forecast on our side, and we make the plans. So this is one about the raw material. And secondly, we are working on the collaborative equipment. We are going for investing on the retail generation machines also. So that's the second aspect.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is a very interesting topic that you are touching. Actually, on one side, the potential, the Indian potential as such, which is on the conventional side, typically automotive or general engineering, oil and gas and all that, is kind of stagnant or maybe shrinking, and there again we must say that it is always moving from region to region. The emerging ones, like for example electronics, is a huge opportunity going forward, but it's absolutely new for Indian manufacturer like us. Having said that, I mean personally for me, I'm 33 years into cutting tool industry, as working with Stanley Coromandel here at last. About 17 years with business interest in all 3-4 areas, which is holding tools, solid carbide tools, coating plant, and then in distribution. The challenge is that in the industry, two main things we are seeing. First, customers' involvement is becoming lesser and lesser. I'm tempted to remember my 94, 95 when I stepped into this industry. And any discussion used to happen at plant head level. Today, it's a challenge to get even a middle management level's attention. Cutting tool discussion is going. And to me personally, I'm difficult to see. Because if you see the manufacturing economics, as Mr. Ravi Prem said, it's a small business, $1 billion maybe in India. That also highly fragmented. About 400 odd companies lying into that space. But the importance of this is not less than it. Importance is not no less. Because if you are talking of $1 trillion manufacturing space, what we have to look at is the value addition and the ability of the cutting tool to make your more expensive investments like machine, like raw material, make it more productive is no less. It's as high as it was always, and then it bothers me. So to me, while it is not exactly a supply side story, but it is more of a consumer side story where we don't know why we are allowing it to go down so much. And that is where we are looking forward to ICTMA and other such bodies to help us rebuild the levels where it should be. The second is, of course, that when we are talking of electronics manufacturing, micro, etc. So the second thing is that entry barriers. Now this big push to India, we agree, we don't agree, is part of this China Plus One strategy. It's nothing that great happened yesterday with India. Yes, we have certain strengths, we are building on that. Now in such short span of time, competences do not get built up. Now here the ecosystem is not supported. The ecosystem can be the technology space, can be the governmental norm space, it could be anything. So finally it is left to the individual business houses to develop, fight without any guarantee for a sustain. And that is where the third part is. Because of the entry barrier being hardly there, the commitment, the loyalty, I mean we are a very young country that way, and that also reflects in our loyalties. Somebody in the earlier session he reflected upon some youngster talking about his job. Here it is same thing. I may be supplying to a customer for donkey's years, but one day if I say that I need 5 extra days, he will give opportunity to somebody else. What happens to service? What happens to performance? What happens to? So I mean these are some of the more predominant, in my opinion, the challenges, which is although not on the supply side per se. On the supply side there is hardly anything. A, we do not manufacture anything in India; it's all imported. B, it's standardized to a level where any company who is using a raw material is using one of the 100 options. That's it. There is no innovation for anybody, big or small. I mean, it's a catalog product. There's hardly anybody who has the ability to pick up, because there's no scale, there's no backward integration. It could be true for the rods, it could be true for the raw material on the HSS side. So it's basically somewhere that the volume and the attention, that is the biggest challenge in my opinion.
So I think to summarize what you just mentioned, it is up to the individual or the entrepreneur to take care of his or her future in this industry.
Precisely. I mean, we talk of innovation here. Innovations are typically you do something to raise the performances or you bring down the cost, the execution innovation. Typically, if you put it into these two broad categories. For product, India as such, we have a challenge. Cutting tool is a very, very small domain. I mean, product innovation. Service innovation is something, yes. But then the scales are not there. I mean, cutting tool industry today, HSS is still a little bit because then you need a big investment. Carbides, solid carbides, round tools. I mean, anybody can make it next to you make a small investment. So idea is that this is something which we talk of innovations, but it will be linked to only the execution innovation that I would say, but not really too much of the price.
I think we have an excellent group of mix here, where we have your customers on this side. So, Mr. Apte, what has been your experience? I know Tanuma's group is a Spanish group. Do you have any comparison as to the European style of working or European cutting tool manufacturers versus the Indian cutting tool manufacturers? What has your interaction with this industry been, and what suggestions would you like to make?
See, basically being a machine tool manufacturer, the issues or the problems which we are facing is related to the cost. Okay, so whether it is a machine tool delivered, then what it is delivered, they are going to know it after 2-3 years. Because anyway they have the idea of the 10% and then they are losing the money, that's all. Nothing is going to affect. Okay, I am not blaming to any Indian machine tool manufacturer or any foreign machine tool manufacturer because of this particular scenario. Even nowadays many foreign machine tool manufacturers are also in the same pattern. If you are talking about the cutting tools, then obviously machine tool, like without cutting tool, machine tool is nothing. Okay. If I have a gun but without bullet, what I can do? Okay. So there is actually, if you have a good combination of machine tool as well as cutting tool, then definitely it will create some kind of innovation or some kind of best product. Otherwise, it will create a blender too. Okay, so combination like it is a cutting tool and machine tool is actually a marriage. If it will go hand to hand, then definitely you are going to get better results in terms of good productivity, in terms of less wastages, good accuracy, and definitely you are going to get some good money, the profit. Because why we are doing? We are doing it only to earn some kind of profit, and that profit definitely should be reinvested into the R&D. Okay, the European companies what we are following, the same fashion they are following. I am just giving the example of my company, Terabyte Group. Whatever the turnover we are having, out of that mostly 10 to 12% turnover we are reinvesting into the R&D. We have almost 120 doctorate engineers, you can say, who are just working on R&D. They are not at all taking care of any kind of production. So in the same manner, whether the Indian machine tool or cutting tool industry is going to reinvest whatever they are earning into kind of innovation, into kind of R&D, that is most important thing. Maybe today I am manufacturing only one product, but definitely what best I can able to give it from that is important depending upon what kind of R&D you are investing. Okay, so according to me or just my personal thought, that definitely if we have to make really India proud or say make in India, like we have the EU norms. Okay, whenever anything we are buying, whether it is toy, whether it is machine tool, whether it is cutting tool, it is coming in EU norms. In the same fashion, maybe after 10 years there should be Indian norms, which has to be globally accepted, and that is possible only by our efforts, sincere efforts. We should also change our mentality. See, for example, whenever we are going to the customer, as you asked, so we sold recently some machines to the customers. So we have good, even Indian cutting tool manufacturers options available with us. But finally, customers said, no, we want these particular ABC options only because these are the proven tools we used in Europe, we used in USA. So we just want to repeat. We don't want to take any kind of risk. Okay. So how we can improve, our credibility is more important. Maybe at the moment, because of the lack of funds or because of maybe the lack of, to not say the knowledge, but definitely the willingness to invest into these kind of things are very much important. So definitely whenever we are promoting any kind of product to the Indian market, we should go first with our own products available in India. Whatever the best available out of it, we should promote. That will definitely better encouragement to our economy, and that will help all of us to actually make it India. Thank you.
Mr. Gaikwad, you are the ultimate customer for all of them. So, what has been your experience, and do you, as a end user, like Mr. Apte said, do you prefer using branded or European cutting tools, or your organization prefers? Is there like a norm that okay, we have to go with such country of origin tools, or you are open to other manufacturers as well?
I would like to make a note, and I would like to make a note to our attention. We have to focus, and we have to make a note towards the government that we have to categorize this cutting tool business as a strategic business that we have to make. At least it should have some focus in the government that we can make a note from ICTMA to the government. And secondly, if we see, finally, I have worked on the both sides of the table. I have sold the cutting tools, and since last 4-5 years, now I am buying the cutting tools. Specifically for the for the 3C companies, specifically in the pandemic, that Tata has launched its Marigold project in Hosur, which was for the 3C element, and the US-based customer called NOAA globally. So at that time, I was one of the members of that, you can say the employee of that group initially. And we actually in the theatre that we are requiring approximately more than lakhs of tools, which are micro tools per month. And actually see, by the scenario of India, we don't have that much manufacturers. And we can't rely, what you say sir, that in the next step, anybody can buy one machine and start the production of cutting tools. But big customers having big volumes cannot rely on their suppliers. Correct. So we have to encourage the existing manufacturers of India, well-known manufacturers of India who are manufacturing the micro tools. We have encouraged them. We have called collective meetings of them. Then it's not only that we called them not as a supplier, we called them strategic partners, because without them we cannot able to manufacture and pull down even our machines. That was the right. Even if we don't have one single tool for 100 of goods, we have to stop our lines. And it's value for minute. So that is a task. And if you see in the pre-pandemic or in the pandemic, there was concept of just in time. But now it's a requirement of market to have the concept of just in case. Whenever you want, we want it at any cost. So that is the point. And second thing, if I see that once we establish any of the product, then the target of the production, target of the purchasing from the organization, that we have to focus on the consumer and we have to reduce the product cost. So how to reduce the product cost? We have to reduce the cost of consumer. Either if we look into cutting tools, then either we have to reduce the price or we have to improve the life. It's a final factor of situation. So there is a trouble. And if you see, if you go towards the local manufacturer or towards the multinational organizations which are manufacturing cutting tools, so here is the value addition or the process of the thought processes multinational have or the initiatives they will take. I think there is a lack in the local manufacturers. They are not right now in that position to take it ahead. That is what I think is there.
Thank you very much. Now my next question is, anybody can answer this question. Let's go through a thought experiment. Let's imagine there is someone in the audience who is decision maker and wish granter of the Indian cutting tool industry. What would you like to ask him or her as to what should happen in the next 5 years in order to have exponential growth for Indian cutting tools?
I would say that cutting tool industry, the innovation part is completely, I would say it's quite a lot missing. Considering that it was 1960 odd when the manufacturing was privatized in India. So we have put about 63 years into it. And the fact is that most of the competence center, like for example, we have one in Bangalore, cutting tool, machine tool, CMD and things like that. But somewhere there is still a huge gap between industry-ready innovation center. Say for example, I as an entrepreneur like to go somewhere because it's a very, very high technology space we are talking about. Everything, the raw material is high tech. Production space, we are talking about microns and sub-microns. Please understand. So it is not possible for any entrepreneur business house whatsoever. Of course, there are multinationals and most of their R&Ds are abroad. They are actually shifting technologies here and manufacturing and using the manufacturing, low-cost manufacturing space. But when it comes to innovation side, I would like to have a wish granted where some kind of a so-called incubation center or some kind of competence center where a willing entrepreneur can go, collaborate,
And experiment.
get something or even experiment together. That is one thing I would like to have. Thank you so much.
With this, I'd like to just note that Ravi sir, we have house center. There, I think ICTMA can collaborate and have some platform for the critical manufacturers.
I'll tell you something. Of course, I'm not into CUAT, but there is something interesting that has happened 4-5 months ago. SIDBI has collaborated with IIT Kanpur, where there is a gateway available to collaborate between an industry and IIT Kanpur. The challenge is that even our excellent institutions. For them, the the development, the R&D, the innovation that we talk about, they stop far short of industry ready. They are mostly kind of thing which is good for a it's a project report. And then there is a problem because the people who are on this side of industry, one thing is very clear. All of us are sitting here because we are financially surviving. All the things are good for investment, but be cautious because most of the red flags are when investments go on. So that is where I am personally tried. Sounds good, looks good, but to go inside the content. Second, with the cutting tool industry, there is one more thing, and I just want to add to what Isha said. In manufacturing, it's at least 5 or 6 elements which together when falls in place gives you the output. Cutting tool is one area which is not supply alone, it is supply and apply. And that is something very important differentiation to make. No cutting tool just because you are paid higher will give you better results. Unfortunately in India, apply side, we either take for granted or we expect everybody else to do it. We don't want to invest and that I will tell you right up to customer. So they are saying that I'm giving you business means you have to take responsibility for everything. It doesn't do. It doesn't. And that's what I say. I mean just to kind of narrate a personal story. That when first time I got into a cutting tool job, I went through 6 rounds of interviews. I mean a regional first group discussion, written interview, and then shortlisting, and then come to headquarters again all that stuff. Talking about 94, 95. Minimum 3-4 years of experience and then all that. Today industry has to do that. Industry has to. I mean I can only say that. Because it's not about, it's okay to be wishful about government, it's okay to be wishful about anybody. But the fact is that we ourselves also in the industry letting ourselves down. We are putting very shallow expectations even from ourselves.
Point well taken. I think one of the key areas where, if I can make a suggestion, I've been associated with this industry for about 10 years now. One thing that may trigger exponential growth for this sector is maybe if the government can somehow, like they have initiated these Mudra loans or even the tax rates that the IT industry got when it was just starting, something like that if can happen for this sector, I think that can that be a good solution or a starting point at least?
See, definitely, whatever the point you raised is very correct. Okay, so nowadays governments are supporting in a large manner to any MSMEs or any other kind of industries. So in that way, as a cutting tool manufacturer, for example, see now in these maybe halls around there are 10 manufacturers are there, Indian cutting tool manufacturers are there. So everybody is having some kind of profit. Okay, so now instead of investing, as I mentioned earlier also, I am more focusing on the R&D. Why I am saying? Because European countries are far ahead than India because of this particular like innovation, or you can say the more investment in the R&D. What we are doing here is okay. Maybe we are depending upon government funds or maybe whatever the organizations they have, and they are very slow growth. So whatever the engines and other things we are manufacturing right now, for example in GDR we developed one parallel engine, okay, which is almost at the moment 1st generation engine, but it should be at the moment should be 9th generation engine. So we are saying almost 5-6 generations back, and still we are saying that, proudly saying that okay, we generated this, we generated that. So the thing is, as in Europe, many I have seen many the private companies or the owners and entrepreneurs, what they are doing. So they are making a group of 5-6 people, or say 10 people in particular area, and they are building a common R&D center. Obviously, being a competitor, you can give some kind of advice to your business, because whatever the R&D one is doing, definitely another person can able to get that particular thing. But here, at the moment, instead of having this kind of competition, because everybody is having their own, competence. Maybe you are manufacturing some, maybe drills, your drills are better. Maybe he's, the another cutter is better. So in that way, if you are doing the innovation together, okay, at this point of time, then definitely instead of depending only on the government, you can develop your own cluster and do this kind of development, which is far better than with the government support. Definitely, like you can get the loans and other things from the government, but for that you don't have to wait. And second important point is we are saying that okay, whenever we are manufacturing, we are talking about the microns or microns. But if we are not having the right environment, how we are going to achieve that? Okay, we are keeping our machine tools at the open area and we are talking about 1 micron and 2 micron grinding accuracies. How we are going to get it? Because I think 1 dp is giving around 7 to 8 microns of the variation per meter. So in that case, how we are going to achieve the accuracies? So the thing is definitely infrastructure in the right way and the investment in the right direction is very much important as a making cluster. That will be definitely helpful and that happened already in Europe in some of the companies and it is working, since they are competitors but still they are working together. It is not like that because everybody, as I mentioned, have their own competencies. They can apply that particular thing into their product and they can go ahead. This could be one of the parts actually we can think about.
Just we are talking about what government can do and government can support us, like on this high-speed steel. So we have very few manufacturers here locally and they are producing at the basic conventional high-speed steel. And most of the superior grades we have to import. Recently government has banned the importing of high-speed steel due to the lobby created by some of the local manufacturers. So that's affecting a lot of government shouldn't listen only for this.
If I'm going to announce this, I think I'll write this because I will not understand handwriting.
They are making, so
Discourse.
that's what they have to follow. Even from the ICTMA, they are going to make this topic.
I think
So as ICTMA, we have to look how we can stop the misuse of used carbide. And second, how we can focus on the recycling of the carbide. I don't think so. We have few or we don't have any facilities in India for recycling of this carbide. That point has to be noticed. Thank you.
I think we had an excellent session and comment from all the panelists. If I have to summarize and bring everything together, I would like to say that at the end, technology wins. Whatever we have to do, we have to develop new technology. We have to understand what the customer needs and whatever the current pain points are. And rather than following a set pattern of solutions, develop our own solutions and grow the industry. So with that, I thank all the panelists over here for their time as well as the audience.
As we speak, and this is where we talk about more of information and a knowledge. There are 2 carbide recycling plants in India. Unfortunately, the manufacturers go for the better scrap yield realization. And in terms what damage they do to themselves, they don't understand. Your brand is up in a market which is somewhere in Chowdi or so-called Lal Killa, and it could be in a different places where your brand being used, and that is not through your recognized channels. I would strongly urge the people those who are producing carbide cutting tools, your scrap and sludge need to be given to the people who are ultimately processing carbide. That's one. With the government, we are already taking up that they should stop exporting carbide, whatever is coming to India. We are anyway big importer of a carbide, but if that is being stopped, the carbide what we produce here, and we are only discussing just, we already had 2 rounds of a discussion with the Ministry of Heavy Industry Secretary. It is not today carbide cutting tools. Defense, so-called all missile programs, propeller requires 5 times than what cutting tool requires, and we don't have a tungsten with us. So that is something which is very, very important from indigenization point of view. There was a discussion which were happening around product innovation, and government should participate a bit of giving some support. I come from the background, and I believe my father has not kept anything for me, but he gave sanskar. So if we make some seed sowing at a college level, how many of us are mechanical engineer, by the way, here in this room? So it's a full of mechanical. How many of you, if I offer you, want to go and work on a shop floor, would willingly and happily would like to go and work? And if I were to ask you this question, when you started your career, how many of you would have agreed? Not many of you. This is what, we have actually butchered, I would use that very bad word, butchered a mechanical engineer, and that's where this gap got created. We, our kids, we wanted to put them into, not into mechanical engineering, and unfortunately, the syllabus which we use in a college, HMT handbook, tell me how many of those machines today are available on shop floor? Those need to be kept in museum. How many of us we have learned in our engineering college that heat and mass transfer is applied in cutting tools? So, this is the state of affair. So if we don't put the right seeds, we may say that, it need to have a good light labs, it may have to have X and Y and Z. By the way, if we don't really invest on engineering syllabus to put cutting tool as a part of it, we deal with fluid mechanics, we deal with thermodynamics, we deal with metallurgy, we deal with material science, we deal with the surface treatments and whatnot. These are the different technologies, when comes and blend together, produce an excellent product. And for a minute, I'll just take out the cap of ICTMA president. We as a company, and I don't ashamed of making this statement, in 2012, our company and our promoters were thinking that we must shut this business because neither we are there on the top, neither on the bottom, we were in Trishanku. And that time we said, okay, let's put efforts to build our R&D center. And I'm proudly to say we are the only Indian cutting tool company which has a full-fledged R&D center with us. How many of us we recognize design and development engineer the way we recognize a production and a sales manager? Because they are producing and those are bringing revenue. But the guy who is actually creating a product for you, we don't have even a courtesy to recognize and say him vocally, "Boy, guy, you have done a great job." So it is more of thinking and reorientation of thinking is what something going to take us there. These are all very baby steps which we are taking. I'm sure it may not happen next year, but in years to come, maybe the next generation will see, yes, India makes cutting tools which are at a global standard and for a global market. Thank you very much.